Malcolm, how are you, man? It's nice to see you.
Just getting old. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Boston.
Because I frequent Boston on quite regularly.
Really?
Whereabouts? Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I'm in do you know I'm like outside of Boston, like Holliston. It's like a few towns
I know
out of the
Hollis. No, I
city.
normally I've got a friend who I visit regularly in Framingham.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a town over for me.
Yeah. I've regularly go down to Shoppers World and all around there and
Yeah.
all that sort of business.
Yeah, is it like a family friend or like
Well, actually, it's a girlfriend that I met because at one time I was on the road with Sabbath working for them, and while I was on the road, I met this girl. We kept it, we had quite a love affair to start with, and then we drifted apart. And she went in her own way and got married and had children in Crete, which fell apart. And she came back to Boston, and she phoned me up. And since when she come back, 2002, I've more or less been over at least once a year, sometimes twice a year.
well, hey, Boston would love to have you. So,
I've got into all her friendship groups, so I really, really enjoy it because I like all her friends, and so it's yeah, I really enjoy coming over.
yeah, Massachusetts is pretty great. There's, that area like Framingham, Holliston, Natick can be a little rough.
Mm.
It isn't the most pleasant area, I think, but there are like some hidden gems, I think for sure, like in that area. Well, that's funny to hear, man. And where are you out of?
I'm down in Birmingham, right in the middle
Nice,
of America, England, like right in the middle.
nice, nice. Back in Birmingham.
Well, I wouldn't say it's nice, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here.
Well, I
Yeah,
like it
yeah,
because of the musical,
yeah,
history
yeah,
behind
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
But maybe living there, I can see
It's
you
not so
can't
much
really.
when it's not so much, as we grew up and the years like the 60s and the 70s, but at the latter years, it's really gone downhill. I mean, it was really after the war, it was really an exciting place to be honest. Although we had to live with all the scars that the war left behind. This is part of why the music developed the way it did, really, from Birmingham, because it was a area that was everybody was struggling to live, and then you got all the remnants of what the war left us, and I'm sure that's what drove the heavy metal style of music to the front.
For sure, and definitely the area and everything that happened around it pretty much created heavy metal, as you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
So we can thank that. But that sucks that it's in a pretty terrible spot right now. I don't know
Mm.
why that may be, but
I don't really want to go into that because I could I tread on a few people's toes, but that yeah,
yeah, fair
yeah,
enough.
okay.
Well, hey, if you want to move to Boston, we'd love
Well,
to have you.
I'm really tempted. I did try to do it many years ago, to be honest. But
Uh-huh.
when I first looked at emigrating over there in 1985, it was really difficult. It's how people get there now uh, amazes me because all the things that I tried to do to when I first wanted to come over, it was made it very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's really I will be honest, living in Boston is very expensive. It's one of the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
expensive cities in the country right now. I think it's like
Well,
number two.
I've noticed that as well because when I come over and like you go to some places like years ago, you go for a breakfast, you could get it at a reasonable price. You go for a breakfast now, and you're talking to spending it somewhere around $20
Yeah, at
for
a
a
diner.
breakfast. Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
paying like, I went to a diner recently, got tea, and it was $6. I'm like, wasn't
Well,
this
I
like
can go
50
to.
cents once?
We've got a chain of pubs called Witherspoons, and they do a breakfast now. Uh, and for £5, you can have a breakfast and a coffee. So that's about $7.
And that's honestly compared to where I am, that's like pretty good.
Yeah,
Like that's really good. I
yeah,
wish it
yeah,
was that cheap where I am.
yeah.
Well, hey man, if you do come here, where are all the Quartz members out of? Would it make it difficult?
I'd have to keep flying back, wouldn't I?
Yeah, because they're
I mean, you can do so much online now as well, can't you? As far as rehearsing and recording, so like it's a bit pie in the sky at the moment. So yeah,
yeah, a lot. I've talked to a few like British new wave bands, and all the members are. I talked to a band, every member was in a different country, and they
yeah,
still figured it out because with the internet, you can just send riffs to each other. You can make
exactly,
a
yeah.
Google Drive. It's a
Well,
lot easier to be a band now.
this friend of mine, her son, he's in a band, and like he's got all the in the cellar, like he's got it all set out for recording and rehearsing. So that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you can be the next Quartz member.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. Yeah, yeah. So what do
Yeah.
you do? What do you do apart from this?
I work at a record store and I'm a comedian. I do like stand
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. Good.
Yeah. So that's
Cool.
my, road work.
And how
Um,
do you know about Quartz?
actually Spotify, which I know is kind of a weird
Yeah,
way. It was Spotify because I'm kind of in that generation where like you just find bands through like the algorithm.
yeah,
And when I was getting into British New Wave, I was like going down the rabbit hole, and you get into bands, and then on Spotify it will be like bands you may also like, so I'll check those out. And then I listen to
uh,
Quartz, and I listened to that debut record, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Because it doesn't sound like a new wave of British heavy metal record, you
and it
know?
was the first album was made before the so-called new wave of British heavy metal
Yeah,
title came out. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And then I went down the rabbit hole, and unfortunately, Stand Up and Fight, I don't think was officially put out by the band on Spotify. So I ended up going on YouTube, listening to that, and then just listen to the new era of stuff and love that. I think Six is a great album and definitely holds up to the rest of the band's catalog. And I'd
yeah.
love to get into it because, I feel like these past three releases have been pretty consistent
Mm.
compared to the entire band's history. How soon after On the Edge of No Tomorrow did you guys start talking about, what, let's put out, a sixth album. Let's work on new material.
We was already working on that. Yeah, we started quite recording quite quickly after that. But I mean, what you had the COVID situation creeping, and then we had various members of the bands who had some illnesses which put slowed things down. Uh, Basically, that was it. I mean, we were recording for on and off for a long time, but it's just as events like as I say, COVID thing put a block on it for quite a while. And we eventually we managed to get the guys in the studio to let us record there, but we're having to go in with masks and all sorts of things. So I mean, the actual putting together of starting to six started quite quickly after On the Edge of No Tomorrow, and then we've had delays trying to get it released. Had all sorts of problems. We seem to be Problems seem to follow us. Yeah. So we've had all sorts of problems getting it out there, but I mean, eventually we did.
Yeah, but against all odds, you guys pulled through. And with
Well, that was another out. Have you listened to that album,
Oh yeah, I've
Godzilla?
listened to all your records, and I know
Because
I
that
know
album again, that album came out with Heavy Metal Records, and it was doing really well. And within the first week, the guy who owned the company fell out with the distribution company and deleted it.
what?
So we'd done thousands of sales within the first few days, and then he stopped it. And one of the reasons why we don't know for sure, but one of the reasons we think it was because he signed that Paul Diano that used to be the singer with
Maiden.
yeah, and he put all his efforts into him after we'd done this phenomenal start.
So he just threw you guys under the bus. That it's
Yeah, yeah,
it's it's
yeah,
a great record too, and it makes sense why the sales were so good initially, but that's insane. And it pretty much broke up the band in the end, I
yeah,
get,
yes,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
with
yeah,
the music industry and everything.
exactly,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but even after that, you guys are back, and Six is a great record, and you talked about it a little bit, but what was like the creative chemistry of members when writing material for that record.
For that one in particular, the lead guitarist did a lot of the groundwork for that one. Um, yeah, I mean, Mickey did a lot of the create, well, not, yeah, he developed, started a lot of the songs off. And like, as we've always done over the years, there's always been one or two people that have come up with ideas, and then a combination of us all working on it has created what the finished thing.
Yeah, was it okay? So it was pretty similar to the writing process of the last two albums as well.
Other than the fact, I mean, the previous album, so before Jeff died, he actually worked on some of the songs, and then when he was actually ill, he said he got a lot of stuff on his. He got computers, two laptops, and he got quite a bit of stuff that he'd been working on these computers. So he asked us not if we'd use it when he passed away, and not it just be left in the computers. So the difficult was he got bits and pieces on these computers all over the place. That nothing made sense. Some of it was multi-tracked, some of it wasn't. Some of it was finished, some of it was, when I say finished, some of it was a full version of a song, some of it wasn't. So it was really hard work finding out all the different things on the computers, the laptops. It was all over the place. Different, same song with different titles in various places. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I'm glad, the record
We've
came
still got
out.
some more stuff of his yet that we might do yet. There's still some more songs that there's the basics there, and then as I say, what we've always done it over the years is somebody initially starts with some idea, and then we all work on it and play on it and contribute and builds it up to a thing that's all of us have an involvement in.
If you were to guess, how many unreleased songs do you think the band has right now?
Ooh, so we've got stuff that we've started on years ago, and it's still in demo form. There must be at least 50.
50. Yeah. Well,
Mm.
I'll have you back on when we're talking about album 12.
Okay. How long you been doing this?
I've been doing the podcast for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's been nice. It's been nice. It's cool because I went to school for radio, and the industry kind of sucks now. I'm not sure if you know the radio politics in Boston, but what happened is iHeartRadio ended
Mm.
up buying all the radio stations in
Oh,
New England.
really?
And then iHeart went bankrupt and then just canned all the stations.
Oh,
So now it's just them. I used to work for iHeart. I got one of their cars towed and then quit.
mm.
Because I wanted to do this, like talk to musicians, play music. Um, but this is kind of what it is now, like internet podcast,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, I'm not up to full speed with it all. I'm still a bit of an old fogey, like, but I'm still, there we go.
Yeah,
So
listen,
you
I
might
want to
you
be
might
spinning
even know you
45s.
might even know my friend's son then, because he plays in about three bands all around Boston and various areas. George Broccolakis.
Can you what bands?
There's one band he was playing with it, and it was a year number something, 1640 something. I think it was
I might.
1645. They and they've
6245?
they've for up um towards Maine. They
Okay.
originate from, and they've got some material out, some records out.
Yeah, I'll check them out, man, because I love having like local bands on. I've had a couple local guys on, and there's an incredible music scene in Worcester. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the city. It's like south of Boston.
Yeah, I did Worcester years ago with Sabbath.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
yeah, yeah.
it was there that they actually give Glenn Hughes the push, and Ray Gillen joined in Boston, Worcester.
I'm not sure if the name of my podcast is called Disturbing the Priest.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's
Yeah, well,
something,
I was
listen, man, I
actually
want, yeah, oh, I know, I know. And that's something I definitely want to dive into for sure. And I want to also get into like your early history as well. Like, I think what's interesting about you compared to other like British new wave musicians is their influences were like Sabbath, Judas Priest, where yours was like the Shadows. Like it was,
well,
right?
Judas Priest come from my town. Robert Plant lives or used to live half a mile from me, and and the girl that he married, Maureen, used to sit next to me at school. Johnny Bonham used to come round and borrow my drums. His dad used to have the habit that if he wanted to reprimand his son for anything, or they did, they got an argument, he'd take his drums off him. So Johnny Bonham and Planty used to come round to my house and borrow my drums.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was such a tight network
Oh
before.
yeah.
Like John,
Well, Judas Priest originates mainly from the area, from the West Bromwich and Walsall area. And some of the road crew had actually come from West Bromwich as well. Robert Plant used to be, we all used to knock around with Robert Plant years ago, and there used to be a coffee bar that he was in there all the time. And as I say, Maureen was sat next to me at school. There's a load of camaraderie, really.
you've been around so many like musicians, like just so many Robert Plant, Ozzy and Tony, Brian May. When we're
Mm,
just talking about the first Quartz record, and
yeah,
that's been a story told a million times
yeah,
of, Tony Iommi and Brian May coming in, I think, for a day and trying to like queenify the
yeah,
album, but he
yeah,
just never was able to, right? Well, didn't you come back and he was like cutting up tapes
yeah, yeah.
or
So
something?
somebody's just tried to call me. How do I cancel that? Do I just press the red button?
Yeah. I can still see you.
Yeah, okay. I can see you, yeah, but I
All
just
right.
got rid of that. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
do I get you back to full screen now? Just click on you.
Yeah, you can hit me or the Zoom app.
And there we go. Right.
We're back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, sorry, where was we? What was you
Uh,
asking?
I brought up
Oh,
Brian
Brian
May.
May. What happened with Brian May? There's a lot of contradiction over this. Tony and Brian May were had a friendship for many years. And when we were doing that first album, Brian came round the studio because of his friendship with Tony. And uh, Queen, a lot of their stuff was put together by doing loads of edits. So Tony got this one song that we'd recorded and we'd be trying to do a final mix on. And Tony says, Brian, why don't you have a go at seeing doing one of your tricks with the edits on this, and we'll go and have a curry. So we went down to the restaurant and had a curry, and when we got back there was Brian, and on the floor was just a mound of tape, which he couldn't make sense of. He couldn't. That was it. That's the end of the story. That was it.
Yeah, yeah. And, Tony famously produced that, which sounds amazing for an album that came out in 77. The production on it really stands out because a lot of these British new wave records, the debuts
Mm.
come out and it sounds like they were recorded with a toaster. But with you guys, that first album sounds amazing. So how did Tony Iommi become a producer on that first Quartz album?
Well, as you're aware, he produced three or four, I don't know how many it was, of the Sabbath albums.
Yeah.
And he'd obviously built up quite a skill from the production sort of side. And he's, he built up a rapport with Robin Black as an engineer stroke producer as well. But Tony, what happened was we were in a bit of a limbo state because we'd fallen out with the manager at one stage. And Jeff Nichols actually come up with the idea of approaching Albert Chapman. Albert Chapman is a very close friend of Tony's. They went to school together, and to this day, they're like brothers. So when Albert took on the job of managing us, he obviously, and at the time, I think I can't remember, at the time, he was actually co-managing Black Sabbath as well. He was tour manager and helping to manage it because at that time as well, the band were managing themselves because they'd fallen out with Patrick Meehan. And because of their close friendship, Tony took an interest in us. He started coming to all the gigs. Uh, he went way above, far and beyond anybody's expectations of getting involved with us. He used to come on a regular basis because we built our own studio to record in. Tony used to come there and listen to what we got and suggest ideas. And he was helping because from Albert's point of view, actually managing a band, it was new terrain. So he was helping Albert trying to get this management thing to look after us. And at the time as well, Jet Records was sniffing around Black Sabbath because obviously that it would have been a feather in their caps if they could get Sabbath on their roster as well. So it was all that sort of going on, and then Tony got the opportunity, I think, from Jet to produce us, which we were obviously really over the moon at, and also we did. I think we did two and a half tours with Sabbath as well.
Right. And you mentioned that he suggested ideas. Was that for the writing process? Did he ever influence any of the song structure or riffs or
No, I don't
anything?
think. No, I don't think he did actually. He would just point out that perhaps one part was better if we changed it round. He never, no, he never did anything. No, he never did. He never did any influencing from that, from a musical point of view. No.
How do you just like generally reflect on the writing and recording process of that first Quartz album?
Well, we'd been writing for a long time before we got involved with Tony. As I say, we put our own studio together, and as I said earlier, Jeff at that particular point was a good instigator for coming up for an idea of a song. But the trouble was with Jeff at that particular time, whenever he came up with a song, it sounded like somebody else's. So we all used to put our two penneth in and reconstruct the song to get it away from where we originally come up with the ideas, and we got loads of songs. And in actual fact, we got from that amount of songs we've got and the variation we got, we secured a deal with what is ATV Music Publishing, which is now Sony ATV, which is Michael Jackson. So we secured that deal before we got involved with Tony.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's such a legendary record and it's really cool to hear the background of it because I just feel like it isn't really a new wave of British heavy metal record. You guys formed like Bandy Legs. That was like 73,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then you guys renamed. But I don't know, it just feels like you guys are kind of in the middle of genres. In the middle of like proto metal, like between proto metal and like new wave of British heavy metal.
Well, you see, the other thing is that where you've got Sabbath, where their roots really came from the blues and that sort of background, we weren't ever in that. We never played that sort. Well, I did play. I actually played in. Robert Plant left the Band of Joy, and I joined it for a while, and played some of these bluesy things. But the Bandy Legs and Quartz have never been on a bluesy feel. So that's and we come from our background really it was cover bands, and but all our things that we used to do were always in a heavy rock or rock vein, and if it wasn't in a rock vein to start with, it ended up in a rock vein. So whereas Sabbath had that blues influence on everything they did, we never had that. So we're more bit more, for want of a better phrase, a bit more commercial than them, I suppose. But
For sure. Yeah.
yeah, and because it was an eye opener for us. I don't think any of us had ever listened to much of Sabbath other than Paranoid. But when we went on tour and heard them, he's obviously made a massive impression on the style of music. So that sort of influenced from that point of view. Yeah,
For sure. And I definitely misspoke saying proto metal because that's like 68, I'd say, like 69.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd say more like traditional heavy metal here. Yeah, now Stand Up and Fight is definitely a different direction for the band. And I know there was definitely some maybe rushing when it came to the writing and recording process. Was that heavier sound a conscious effort, or did it just naturally happen?
It naturally happened because what happened is that we secured the deal with the MCI, but we went straight from the deal with MC, signing that deal with MCI on tour with Rush. And while we were on tour with Rush, MCI said we want an album. So we were scuttling, we were writing in the hotel rooms. So that when we came off the Rush tour, we went straight into the studio. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, Derek Lawrence, the producer, did a real good job of that, but we weren't happy with it when we did it. But on reflection now, he captured a lot more of the rock side of us than we realized at the time.
Yeah, and that's so funny to hear. Would you say every single song off that record was recorded or was written in a hotel room? Like that
That
whole
was all.
album?
It was all. Yeah, all of it was put together in hotel rooms and wherever we got a 5 minute break or whatever.
Yeah. Now, I feel like those first three legacy like Quartz records are so vastly different each one. Would
Yeah.
you say that third one has, it has a more commercial sound, I feel like. Do you think this was due to like the lineup change because it was like just new musicians and they were bringing their own sound, or was there kind of a conscious effort to like bring in that more commercial sound to the band?
You're talking about Against All Odds.
Yes.
Yeah, strictly speaking, that's not the third because there was a live album and also a thing called
Studio.
Sa Yes, yes, it was a conscious effort to change direction slightly because we've been working so hard, and I can't overemphasize how hard we have tried to climb this ladder in England. Uh, and yet again, MCA let us down again because MCA, we went on tour with. We did that stand up and fight, and we went on to, we'd done the Rush tour, we did the album, and we went straight out again on the road with the UFO. The album came out, and it was doing fantastic in Europe. But at this, when they did the deal with us with MCA, they signed about five bands on on the same time. You've got the Tigers of Pantang and White Spirits. I can't remember all the names. But what happened is that they run out of cash. So they lost faith in us for whatever reasons we don't know. Because what we found out since is the sales figures are really high. They pulled the plug, and that's one of the reasons why the two band members left because we'd been working so hard over the X amount of years, non-stop recording, non-stop gigging, and felt and like as you must be aware of is that in most cases with bands you've never got any money and you got families that started, you got mortgages to think of. So the two lads had to drop out. And we thought that why not try and do a more commercial, slightly commercial thing, slightly more American feel, in the hope that we could get some sales in America.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate. You mentioned it earlier, but what happened with distribution, just such a shame. It really is. I feel like so many bands back in like that day got screwed over so bad by labels. Like it was
Oh,
just the norm.
yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know what the policies with some of these companies, why they only wanted to achieve a certain, because you don't know what there could be tax reasons for this, losses and all sort of business. And I heard a few things over the years that so guys would go into who knew the head of certain companies and come up with a fictitious band, have a massive advance for the fictitious band, split the money with whoever was in control of the company, and then just theoretically disband the band.
That's ridiculous. That's great.
But you can
That's
see how it
insane.
works, can't you?
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
see how it
yeah.
works.
100%. Yeah. It's so crazy how it is kind of similar, but back then it just seems so malicious and just so greedy. Like definitely like it broke up so many bands, especially like when you
Yeah,
just look at like Neat Records, just that
yeah,
label.
yeah.
Uh I feel like they ruined like most of the genre of new
Oh
wobble.
yeah.
Um yeah, they I think they gave Raven like a 24-hour recording time for
Oh
one of their
really?
records. Yeah, they were brutal, and if you
Oh
didn't
right.
cut it, they would just dump you and leave you on the street broke. And it's like, well, we have no money.
Mm.
We don't have a deal anymore. Let's just disband, which happened to most of the bands, unfortunately.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, yeah, so, we
Well, I
already
mean, it was that Against All Odds. That was like with heavy metal records, and that they screwed us over in quite a few different ways. But I mean, that was recorded in 2 weeks. But yet again, the problems with that was we recorded some of it, and the studio where it was went bankrupt, and they had a fire, so we had to pull out of there and find another studio.
Yeah, against all odds.
Yeah, that was it. That's why.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this is something I really want to dive into. Of course, it was like what, a 33-year hiatus outside of Quartz, and that's a time you worked with Tony,
Mm.
and I'd love to know the extent of your role in the Born Again record.
Well, the born again thing was not long after we'd been touring with them, and obviously still got quite a close contact with them, and also um, the guy that was their tour manager, a guy called Paul Clark, who actually was a tour manager and helped to put together Man of War as well, uh, was working for Tony. Somewhere along the line, I got a message that Bill was still in hospital doing his dry out business, and they wanted to start doing some rehearsals. Would I be available to help out on the rehearsals? So I obviously went to the rehearsals. Uh, I can't remember how many times I went and helped to just play along so they could try and formulate some songs. And then Billy came over, and I was sort of looked after Billy and made sure he was okay on a daily basis until they went in the studio. And then I was backwards and forwards to the studio. Yeah, and it's not commonly known, but are you aware about Ian Gillan and his accident at the studio?
Yeah, the car crash.
Yeah, well, me and another guy we were both on the scene together and actually helped him out of the car that were upside down and dragged him through the smashed window in the door.
Did you think he died?
No, no, from what I can remember, I mean, we're talking a few years ago. You could hear, I heard a horrendous crash and went out to see what was going on. And then there's this car that was balancing almost on the edge of like a swimming pool, ready to sort of the slightest thing it could have gone in. And Ian Gillan was making some sort of move to get out, and me and this other guy got him out through the window.
He must have been like blood and everything.
No, 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 I don't recall
Really?
him. But no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no.
I just know, that mansion or whatever, it was just the antics that went on. I believe Ian Gillan was like sleeping in a tent and they'd set off
That's right. Yeah.
fireworks next to
Oh,
him.
yeah.
How long were you at the mansion for?
I was backwards and forwards. I wasn't there all the time. Um, I can't remember actually, because at one stage Billy had a heart attack while they were there as well, and they had to get him into an ambulance. But I think they'd already finished the drum tracks then. I think they were only there about 3 weeks in total.
Yeah. Yeah, just such a crazy time, and it's one of my favorite Sabbath records.
Mm.
Um, Even though people say it's like the worst one. I think the writing and the riffs and the production I think adds the
I
eeriness.
think it stands up in a. It's not really a Sabbath record, but it stands up. If you look at it and you're not looking at it as a Sabbath fan, I think it's a good record.
It's definitely a black sheep in the
Yeah,
discography for sure. And
yeah.
not only the Born Again record did you help, but you also influenced Tony Martin joining the band. Is that true?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'd been on the road, with doing the Sabbath tour, and I can't remember whether, yeah, we'd been to Montserrat doing the album. I get mixed up with the titles of those two albums, but we'd done the album there, and they were having problems with Ray Gillan and finishing that album
Is this
to
Eternal
the point.
Idol?
Yeah, I think it is. I get mixed up with Eternal Idol. What's the other one?
Um, Seventh Star. right?
Yeah.
Because
And
that's
Ray
like
Ray
the
Gillen
Tony
had
Iommi.
already redone done the vocals, and but they weren't happy with what was going on with Ray Gillen. He was up to all sorts at the time, and Tony just said to me, I'd already mentioned to Tony that Albert Chapman, who I mentioned before, who had now started his own management company, had got a real good singer. And Tony just come to me one day and said, "What's this singer that Albert's got? Is he any good?" And what, blah blah blah. And I said yes. So the next thing I know is that they had a bit of a session somewhere, and he was asked to join the band.
Yeah. And I think that's really funny to hear. Also, like everyone's celebrating this Tony Martin era right now with the
Mm.
re-release of the box set, and it's really cool to see that you are pretty much responsible for getting Tony Martin as the singer. And I think he did an amazing job in the band.
He did, yeah. He's a very talented man, actually, a very talented man.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's cool to see the history of the band and how you guys got back together because I feel like it's very poetic when talking about new wave of British heavy metal bands because all of these bands, what they do is they do the charity gig, after 20, 30 years, and then they miss being on stage and they get back together. So it was the charity gig that ignited that. Is that true? That it was
The
like a
charity
charity
gig.
for
We did
Quartz?
do a charity. Yeah, yeah, we did do
Yeah.
a charity. Oh, the charity, the Quartz charity gig. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. Because I mean, we did a
Not
charity gig
Sabbath.
with
Yeah.
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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we did it was a charity to raise some money for a friend of ours, a guitarist that had passed away. There used to be another Birmingham band that we used to play with really years ago called Crier, and one of the guitarists he passed away, and the other guy said, "Do you fancy doing this charity gig, the two of us together, just to raise some Stuart, his name was, to raise some money for Stuart and his family?" So that's how it came about. Yeah.
Yeah. So how soon after that gig did you guys start talking about maybe reforming the band? What was that initial
I think it
conversation?
was I think we more or less come to the conclusion after all the rehearsals to do that charity that why not, we've all got past the stages where we got mortgages and things like that, so the things that the pressures that were there before had gone,
Yeah.
uh and there's sometimes I think when you've done a lot of work with the band you get burnt out, and I think all those burnt out things from the past were no longer relevant, and it was fresh to get out to be the camaraderie and be with your pals and have another go.
Yeah. And Fear No Evil was the band's comeback album.
Yeah,
So what was it like writing material for Chords for the first time after like what, 33
exactly.
years?
Yeah, yeah, it was refreshing actually. Some of the things that you got in subconsciously you got in your mind from seeing other people play in the past and God knows what. All of a sudden you think, oh, I can do that now. I got a way of experimenting with that and doing things like
Yeah, all these things you've learned in that time, you can bring to the table now.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
it adapts.
yeah, for sure. And you could totally hear it. Um, Now we have this is the sixth album out now, and it's so interesting to look at the discography because there's two halves of it. There's the three new era records and then the three legacy albums. How do
Yeah.
you compare the two eras of the band?
Gonna give it a thought actually. Um, well, I mean, the difference is, in some ways, is we were a lot younger then, uh, and our objectives was obviously to try and succeed. Then, um, it's a different feeling, it's a different vibe now. As much as you'd want recognition for what you do and whatever, but it's a totally different vibe. I mean, we're under no illusion that we're going to set the world on fire, but we enjoy doing the recording and like, putting songs together. And if we can just keep that momentum going from that point of view, it's great at where we are in our lives to be able to do that.
Yeah, and as a fan, I'm really happy to see you guys are putting out material, because the third record came out before I was even born. So I'm happy that
That's rubbing it in, that is, isn't it?
so I'm happy to be alive while the band's putting out albums. And I think these past three releases have been fantastic. And just to kind of wrap things up, I guess, what's the best way for people to stay in touch and stay updated with everything Quartz?
Well, we have got a website, Quartz website, but don't ask me what it is. I can't remember. We've got a guy. We've got a
Quartz.com.
guy, Tim. Tim. He does a lot of administration work for us, so he handles anything like that. Um, but I mean, you could always use my email address, which is drummerquartz@hotmail.co.uk.
And are you guys on social media?
No,
No.
not yet.
Not yet.
We've just done some videos this week, so we're going to start and put some
Cool.
stuff on there that way.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And I'll link the band's website in the description of this podcast. Well, Malcolm, thank you so much for taking the
There's
time out to talk
there's
to me.
there's a email address on the album at the
Your personal
have you
email.
got the album?
I don't have a physical copy. No,
Do you want me to send you one?
I would be honored.
Uh, if you give me your address.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it off air.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
wrap it
okay.
up.
Yeah,
Um,
obviously, yeah.
yeah,
Send
yeah,
you got my email address, haven't you?
yeah, yeah.
So
I'll email you my address and everything. I'd be honored, man. I collect vinyls. I do CDs, whatever.
yeah, we're not going into vinyls yet because the cost of making vinyls is absolutely astronomical. Astronomical.
It's ridiculous. I know there's like a 6 month waiting period for a lot of bands too. It's really bad. And then the tariffs, I don't even yeah. But anyway,
So there's on the CD cover there's an email
yeah.
address which is quartzrock@hotmail.co.uk.
So anything
So
you want to
you
know
know
about the band or if you have any
that's the
questions,
way to go.
awesome. Awesome. Well,
Which where will you say your area is again?
I'm in
Where about
I'm in Holliston.
Hollis? I thought that's what you said.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up this episode, Malcolm, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor talking to you and, wealth of knowledge and to hear about your history and the early days, even like knowing like Robert Plant and with Rob Halford being down the street. It's just so crazy that you've lived this crazy life.
I
And
could go on forever with all the names of people that have been successful
I'm
and we've been involved with one way or another.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
it's
it's
just
been
so great talking to you. And Six is out now. It's a fantastic record from the band. And check out all their stuff. I'm Brandon Battick, and this has been Disturbing the Priest.